as America goes to vote today. So, Bubba, we've mentioned some of these individually from time to time. Today, when you start thinking about people of faith, those of you that are part of the church, you've been redeemed by Jesus, you're a follower of Christ, you're working on your sanctification, you know that you're justified, and you start thinking, I just feel a little bit angst today. I don't know the state of our nation. I'm worried about the vote. I can't get it out of my mind, can't sleep. I'm tossing, I'm turning. So I've handpicked some of the verses that we've all mentioned here on the show a few times, just to kind of, you have these for you today as you go out. And I hope they will bring you peace, the kind of peace that it's brought us and brings us. Because this is that thing, Bubba, and anybody who thinks, anytime a human being says, well, let me tell you, I've got this figured out, this is one of those concepts. I guess there could be divine revelation, no doubt about that. But when people try to comprehend, and it's been referred to as a dance between God's sovereignty and our free will. And it is a very complicated thing to try to wrap your mind around, but that he's
a big topic for mere mortals.
Yeah, it's a big topic for mere mortals. So here's what we do. And this was actually, I think Scott Dawson and his wife Tara taught our Sunday school lesson this past Sunday. We're all in the same Sunday school class, and we rotate on teaching. And I believe it was it Spurgeon who said this? Maybe he said, anytime you get to the point, and I'm paraphrasing, to where you're just completely overwhelmed by something that your finite brain cannot comprehend, just keep doing what you know you're supposed to do.
Right.
And we do know that we, are to go out, and we're to be disciples, and we're to make disciples, and we are to live as citizens of whatever nation we live in. And we've been given instruction on what to do with a reminder of the things we're supposed to do, but always being reminded who God is in all of this. So here's some stuff just to kind of apply. And one of them we refer to a lot, Romans chapter 13. I'm using English Standard Version. It's my favorite to study with, but I'm not saying this is the one you should use or whatever. It is a good one. It's very literal, not as poetic and beautiful as some of the others, but it's very literal. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there's no authority except from God, and those that exist, meaning the people who are in government, have been instituted by God. Some say ordained, others say appointed, and some of the other English translation. So what we can rest in from the holy word of God, whomever is placed in these government positions, ultimately they've been placed there by God. Doesn't mean we don't participate. It just means we rest in his sovereignty. Isaiah 40, 17 and 18. All the nations are nothing before him. They are accounted by him as less than nothing and emptiness. To whom then will you liken to God, or what likeness compares with him? Now think about that. We get all caught up in all these wars and all these nations. Isaiah says the nations are nothing before him. They're nothing but emptiness. It's meaningless compared to the power of God. Daniel, in chapter 4, after Nebuchadnezzar has had a dream that he's about to be humbled about his authority, and Daniel says the sentence is by the decree of the watchers. These were the angels that were saying in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, hey, chop the tree down. You don't want, by the way, if you're the tree in the dream, you don't want God's angels say, chop it down. Okay, but that's what Nebuchadnezzar has just seen. And he says this decision is by the word of the holy ones, God's angels, to the end that the living may know that the Most High rules the kingdoms of men and gives it to whom he will and sets over the lowliness of men. He's saying the kingdoms ultimately belong to God, and the people who run the kingdoms, God calls that. Daniel says in chapter 2, 20 and 21, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings. He sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Even the very wisdom that we might be impressed with, Daniel reminds us, that came from God. I wouldn't get really impressed with the person. I'd be impressed with the giver of the wisdom, the giver of the knowledge. And then the one that I've always kind of liked, because we're from the South, so this analogy we can see, he's using a stream here. But picture if you're a Southerner and you've got you a glass of sweet tea and it's got some ice cubes in it, or whatever you like with ice cubes in it, how easy it is to take your finger, say you put a little sweetener in it, and you just take your finger and stir those. That's about how much effort it takes God to wipe out a king or listen to this. The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord, and he turns it wherever he will. So rest in that today. Certainly participate. And you've been allowed, we have here, not everybody gets to do that in other nations, but in our nation, we are blessed by God's grace to be able to have a say. But ultimately, when you think about the things you can't control today, rest in the one who is controlling it. As the now late Steve Farrar said, never think things are out of control. They are completely under God's control. Rest in that. So that's just keep that perspective today.
It could either be a blessing or a curse.
Yeah, but he's going to decide it ultimately. Yeah, and when you think about who's going to steal this, who's going to steal that, what's going to happen, ain't nothing going to happen that God doesn't allow.
Yeah, and you see,
because he can certainly stop it.
You see people like Joseph, Daniel, the disciples in Acts. They all say, follow the government, follow the laws of your land until they go against God's law.
Yeah, they certainly
and they worked in those governments. They did what they were supposed to do to the best of their ability, but they never crossed that line, and I think that's the key point in all that.
Yeah. So remember that if you see the church and those of us in the church refuse to follow any command that blasphemes God, that's the example. We got that from Daniel, and we got that from the disciples and the apostles.
Yep. Pay your taxes, be a good citizen, but don't cross that line. And you got to go a long way to cross that line usually, too.
Yeah, true. People asking us to put these. If you'll go, I actually put these on Instagram today. If you follow me on Instagram, all these verses I put under a picture today there on a post. So you can go find all of them. I think I put them all there. If not, most of them are there. And right there for you. So rest in that today, and participate. Participate. Get involved.
What a blessing we have the opportunity to vote.
Yeah, to have a say.
Like you said, a lot of people don't. Still, even to this day.
And God seems to always be interested in how we feel about what we're telling him. You remember when he had his people ask him for a king? Was the wrong thing, but they were allowed to ask. We'll be back.